It is my absolute pleasure to introduce Holly Rye, who is the Employment and Education Services Coordinator at the Halifax and Region MFRC and a certified career development practitioner. Holly has had the honor of living the military family lifestyle, and over the past 17 years, she has had the pleasure of supporting hundreds of military spouses through successful career transition. Helping military spouses find passion and purpose in their careers is not only a guiding principle of Holly's practice, it is a personal and professional belief. At the center of her role, Holly provides a comprehensive employment support program to the CAF and veteran families community living in Halifax, Nova Scotia. With a focus on career development, she ensures that the Canadian career guidelines and standards are practiced while supporting clients through career transition process. This level of professional capacity is fundamental to being able to offer military spouses a service that strives for program excellence, inclusion, and accessibility. Providing support that is relevant to the changes faced by military spouses who experience continuous and unpredictable change that affects their ability to find and maintain employment is a hallmark of the EES program at the H&R MFRC. I can only sit here with complete and utter personal confidence and experience in Holly and say she is phenomenal at what she does. She is passionate about the work that she does, and it comes through when she works with every single spouse that walks through her door. I've had the pleasure to not only work with Holly as a colleague in our days at the Shearwater and then Halifax and Region MFRCs, but also as one of her clients and to know her personally as a family friend. So it is my absolute honor and pleasure to welcome Holly here with us this afternoon. Over to you, Miss Holly Rye.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for having me here today. And for reaching out to me way back, Michelle, to be part of this amazing conference that you're doing and allowing me both the time and the audience, can you imagine, to speak on a topic that I'm really passionate about and have spent the better part of my own career pursuing. And obviously, thanks to all of you participants who have taken the time today to join us in the spirit of learning how to find that passion and purpose in your career choice, and hopefully to further your own employment potential. So I guess without further ado, we'll get started here. And I'm so glad you guys are monitoring the chat because I do find it a little overwhelming to do both. So it always takes a team, takes a village, and yeah, happy to be on board for this as well. I always begin my presentations with sort of an idea of what I want to end up with, having given you and having maybe provided some light on. And I guess when I look at what my wish for you is with these three basic strategies that we're going to look at in terms of how do we actually use them to find passion and purpose in our career choice. And for me, a big thing is about recognizing the prior learning that's in the room and having other people share their common experiences and their best practices that they've learned along the way, because let's face it, you live this lifestyle, so you're certainly able to speak to this just as well as I am. And, you know, having that opportunity to share with one another is really important. That whole peer support that comes from the connection of common experiences and living the lifestyle, you know, gives us and affords us so many opportunities to learn. And then I'd love to be able to impart a little bit of employment-related resources that potentially you have available to you to access. I'll always say it's easier to do this with a team. And, you know, career practitioners and career professionals are out there certainly to help you. So you don't have to go it alone, and you don't have to be the expert on it. There's people that you can access that will help you do that. So, yeah, that's basically kind of what we're going to hopefully tackle today, and we'll get right into it, because I think the best part of this conversation is really going to be the questions and answers at the end. That's the part that I absolutely love. So we'll move forward and see how far we get with that. So what's you know, a workshop without a little bit of an icebreaker? And I thought what might be kind of a good place to start is to look at a little bit of statistics. I'm not going to inundate you with facts and figures too much, but on average, what I'd like you to maybe consider is how many times do you think a person would change their careers or their jobs in a lifetime? And I do want to mention that I'm going to use the word career and job interchangeably here. So let's look at that first section there. How many people, by show of hands, would think that it's about 5 to 9 times that a person would change their careers or their jobs in a lifetime? And maybe I can get you, Joanna, to sort of just kind of tally up a little bit.
So we have 2 people.
We have 2 people.
Wait. 1, 2, 3. Sorry, more people raise their hand. So we have 4 people.
Okay.
Raise their hand.
About a third of what we got. Okay, so 4 people think it's about 5 to 9. Let's go to the next category, which is 10 to 15 times, which for some might seem quite a bit. How many people would say that on average a person joining the professional realm right now is looking to change their careers at least 5 to 10 times in their professional life?
Make sure you put your hand down if you put it up for the first one. Let's see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 19.
Oh, okay. Wow. And the final one, 16 to 20. Do you have any people left that haven't answered the skill testing question? If they want to put their hand up, if they think that represents the amount of times that a person will change their careers.
1 person.
1 person.
Barb just added her, so I'm going to say 2 people.
2? Okay. Well, you're in good company, Barb, because believe it or not, the Canadian average is 19. So I can remember when I first left university, you know, all full of vim and vigor and purpose and thinking at that time it was 7. And that was back in the early 90s. And thinking, man, how am I ever going to have a chance to get to 7 different careers? And now on average, we're looking at 19 times, which is pretty astounding for some. Some, depending on your age, probably fits right in with where you're, with where you're at. But the reality is, and by the way, this is my son's hockey jersey. He wore 19 all through minor hockey, so I thought, hey, props to you, Nick Roy, for representing the Canadian average. Michelle, you'd appreciate that. So when you think about it, for most Canadians, that whole concept of going to work for the same company, you know, working hard, retiring with your gold watch, really is no longer a reality, except for, and of course the military will be the anomaly, the military. And even at that, I think the average age now of people retiring from the CAF members retiring is in the mid-30s. So certainly, you know, the opportunity to have many different jobs and careers even after they've retired. So, you know, although they represent that, the military represents that anomaly, it really isn't our reality anymore. The economy right now, although it's a really strong economy, I know in our area here in Halifax, it's rapidly shifting from a job to a skill-based economy. So back in July of 2018, RBC actually had did a study, and they had determined that 2.4 million jobs will be added to Canada in the next few years. So the future of work is here. The future of being hired for a specific skill set is here. Those days of, you know, permanent employment are being increased dramatically by contract work, self-employment, term positions, and definitely career mobility. Job titles are changing rapidly to keep up with the developing new industries that are part of this global market that we now see ourselves in. So what this means actually for employees is that continuous learning on their part will be required in order to meet the demands of companies that are trying to exist in this ever-changing global market. Some good things about that, actually, and really when you consider where this actually leads us, that whole idea and concept of career mobility is no longer now just unique to the military spouse. I can tell you thousands of times I've heard, so how do I explain to them that I've had so much career movement? And how do I hide the fact that I have, you know, transitioned from job to job and I've followed my spouse throughout? Our reality now is that millennials, actually, who represent the least tenure amount of time in the labor market, have no other approach. They look at this as being something that is completely normal. In fact, I did a orientation training workshop back in December for 5 of our new staff, and most of them were in the range of age between 22 and 30. Typically for them, they're on their 6th or 7th job, and most of those people have just left university and just starting into that professional, direction of their career. So they're, I don't want to say they're born knowing that they're going to have a lot of career change, but it's absolutely expected to that generation that they're going to be moving around a lot. So most of the time when we look at, changing of careers and we see the concept of 19 times, for a lot of people this will probably be quite a daunting amount. And I mean, it's like anything. There's the average, and then there's where everybody else sort of falls in. And I really would like to know, maybe just 1 or 2 people, if this really surprises you, or is this sort of, we only had 2 people answer 19. So those that kind of stayed in the middle, where it's safe, is probably thinking, wow, is that, is it shocking? Is it mind-blowing? I'm seeing, a couple of people here that are in the chat box. It is shocking, and it is only going to get larger and larger. That's the thing. If you look at, in my case, graduating in the early 90s, and it was 7, and now we fast forward, 30-some years later, and it's now at 19. So.
And Holly, I think the sentiment in the chat too was kind of surprising that, for military spouses, for us to even be surprised by the size of that number, because we're obviously, most of us went with that middle range, which would seem high. As military spouses, we kind of included that moving and transition, but for us still to be surprised is shocking.
Yeah, so you're not alone, and you're certainly not going to be alone the more, we get into this kind of global, ever-changing market. But I wanted us to sort of start off with that as a discussion point, because I really feel that it's important to sort of understand that, careers are now completely mobile and nonlinear. And though I'd hate the word normal or normalizing, it really does give you pause for thought, if nothing else, to know that, you're not unique in terms of that, and you are up against other applicants potentially that have as much movement as you have had in your own position as well. And that's, I don't know, to me that's a little bit reassuring, because it levels the playing ground a little bit better than it would if you were, completely thinking, oh, I have to justify my my tenure of time again to somebody. Are they going to take a chance on me because they see so much movement in my career? So the playing ground is being leveled, which I think is a great thing. So when we speak on the topic of passion and purpose and career choice, it's an important reality that we have, as it not only takes away from the once standard need to justify, as I had just said, your career movement and disrupted work history, but it also leads to supporting career choice and that thinking out of the box, right, when it comes to career exploration and the development of skills throughout one's work experience, however long that particular work experience or job might be. You're going to see as we move along in the next few slides how this is all going to come to play, but just in terms of a spoiler alert, it's a good thing to be on the move with your career, accepting new challenges and experience because they lead to skill development. And if we're going into a skills-based economy, how better positioned would you be if you have a composite of really strong skill sets? It positions you to really respond to that whole rapid changing world that, our working environment is moving into. So it's a good thing, like I said. All right, so by show of hands here, how many people love TED Talks? Anybody like a serial TED Talk watcher? Yeah, it's become, well, it was my, I went through a little stage, I'll admit, completely addicted to TED Talks. I went to university in the 80s, so that was a time when computers were just starting to surface. And actually the computers that we had took up, huge labs in our universities just to house them. So the notion of attending a lecture in the comfort of your own home, not unlike what you're doing today, maybe even in your pajamas in the middle of the night, it completely blew my mind. And I kind of lived vicariously through that on-campus student experience when I discovered TED Talks, because I could just show up and, whatever happens. And it was, if I decided to tune into something on a particular subject matter, it was there at my disposal. So all that to say is I came across a TED Talk, I think it was last year, from a woman who was actually a U.S. diplomat's wife. And she was speaking on transition and passion. I can't remember if she was speaking from the Philippines or from Hanoi, but it was definitely, she was definitely far from home. And she was this amazing speaker. She was actually a lawyer, and she did a fantastic job speaking to her realities and the struggles while she was supporting her spouse's career. So her journey from feeling guilty about wanting her own career to finally arriving at a place where she could fully embrace her work experiences that led her to passion and purpose was really captivating to me. Like I hung on her every word because she was so articulate about the whole thing. So she touched on the challenges as most would, but most importantly, she really focused on those success of being in continuous career change and transition, and how she was really able to cultivate passion and purpose, living a very transient and unpredictable lifestyle, as she called it. So when you look at this approach, it becomes about having opportunity to really harvest those learning experiences that build on your existing skills and competencies. I think that's really cool. And by being adaptive and flexible and understanding now, as you have through some of these facts that we've talked about, that careers are no longer linear, your careers are going to become composites of different job experiences, but you will be able to see links because we naturally gravitate to things that we enjoy and find passion in because they're an easy extension of who we are and our personalities. So I did learn one kind of, and it was interesting because I kind of get captivated when it comes to, the different interpretations in our English-speaking cultures. But she did have a new term for me. I had never heard it, and maybe ladies, you and gentlemen, you might have heard. She called herself a trailing spouse. And to me, it was just kind of, I don't know, gave me a pause to kind of think because I thought, geez, trailing spouse, to me that kind of infers that the power is really taken from that individual and that they are trailing, they are behind somebody else. And I'm sure that that is a reality that you probably feel a lot of the times. But she was able to take that and really spin it in a positive way and talk about how, being ready and open for that journey and adaptable to whatever comes along, she was able to really benefit from all those different experiences that came her way. If she just looked past, job titles, and we're going to get into that a little bit, and what she had done in the past. So strategy 1 is all about being ready and open to the journey. And although this might sound somewhat of a cliche, I think it's important to just sit with this for just a minute because there's some important concepts that live in adopting an outlook or an attitude that sets you up for positive experiences and allows you to bloom where you're planted, as we see today. So as we have discussed in previous slides, careers, like we said, are no longer linear for most Canadians. The key then is to be able to find passion and purpose in a new job or a career by being adaptable and flexible with the opportunities that come your way. So we all know now that all work experiences are relevant and all do provide opportunity to develop your particular skill base, regardless of the exact job that you've had in the past or whether you're pursuing something that is completely different. You own your skills. So good, bad, or ugly, whatever a situation is, work-wise, at the end of the day, the one thing that you do take from that situation is learning. And learning translates into skills. These skills become a portfolio of different work experiences. And within them, you can see there'll be common links, like I said, that will emerge. Whether it's something in the helping professions, whether it is advocacy, whether it is assessment and referral, you'll be able to see when you look at the composites of those skills from your prior learning some definite themes that run throughout your experiences. So common links, as they begin to unfold, they'll reveal those strengths in those areas. And again, you'll naturally gravitate to those because they represent experiences from jobs that you've enjoyed and that you've had passion for doing. Whenever you work in passion, it's like you don't work at all. It's just such an extension of who you are and your soul's work that it doesn't feel like you're doing work. These strengths are used in career development to form what we call your personal brand. And this is an interesting concept. So your brand is that thing that separates you from everybody else. In fact, in resumes nowadays, there's actually a personal branding statement that you can begin your resume with. And that is something that usually reflects what you're known best for, or something that people know that you're very good at. Perhaps an employer has, noted that in the past, or that is something that you have strived for. That is your personal brand. It allows you to be completely different and stand out from everybody else. The other thing that you have to remember is that this actually becomes your currency. So when your brand speaks to your competencies and your strengths, that's your currency. That is your leverage that you possess that allows you to follow a direction because your passion is aligned with your purpose. So, a couple of different words there. Personal brand, right, which is a direct extension of who you are as an individual. And then the brand becomes the currency. Your ability to leverage yourself into different experiences, different job titles, different directions, because you have the skills to be able to do the job. Not because you've had the past experiences in terms of the job title, but because you now have this wonderful composite of all of this skill inventory that you're able to bring to your new position or to an existing employer. And as Oprah says, and this is a great quote, I still use it all the time, when you follow your passion, it'll lead you to your purpose, because it really truly is an extension of your inner self. Right, okay, so let's continue discovering more of these strategies. So the next strategy that I'd like to talk about is opening up yourself to the possibilities that exist beyond a job title. Man, oh man, I have to say, people get stuck on job titles, big time. Like, they own it. And, we've spent a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort on developing our ability to do a particular job. But if we remain closed in that job and only see that job title, then we miss all the other opportunities that exist beyond it. In short, it's about embracing the experiences and ditching the titles. We spoke to this briefly in the previous slide, but I think it's important to note that in order to fully explore what's out there in terms of career or job that would align you with your passion and your purpose, you do have to embrace the reality that possibility that your prior job or job title or position might not be available to you as an option in your new posting. So what could exist instead could be an opportunity that matches your skills and your strengths, aka your currency, but it could possibly exist in a different industry or in a different position. So for example, let's look at a job like an office manager. And I chose this because the position not only looks different from company to company, industry to industry, but sometimes it can even appear differently in terms of a classification or a job title. So there are obvious differences, like I just said, but what if you just took the profile of what an office manager does and focused on the composites of what that position looks like in a traditional setting with traditional responsibilities? You'll be able to see that there's common threads that tie that professional experience together to other jobs and other occupations. So what are those skills that you consistently use in everything that you end up doing professionally? Right there is going to lie in right there will be your strength, will be your story, your currency, and your path to success. What are those skills that you consistently use in everything that you end up doing? So if you look at the center of what an office manager does, right? They're responsible primarily for, organizing and coordinating administrative and procedures for effectiveness and efficiency. They're responsible for developing communications, procedures, maybe inventory control, possibly they have budget responsibilities, staff supervision, task delegation, whole host of things. You didn't already know that this title was an office manager. Would you think it was possible for it to be something other than an office manager? Could it be potentially a project manager, an operations person? See where I'm going kind of with this? If you look past what you have done or assumed under a specific job title, other opportunities to explore will reveal themselves in different working environments that already align with your existing skills. So that allows you to use your existing currency. It still allows you to work in an area that you're possibly passionate about and can find purpose in. It just might look a little different than it has in the past. Again, embracing the experience and really ditching the job title and not getting hung up on the semantics is going to allow you a whole opportunity to explore things that you might not have already thought about. So there's a book out there called The Art of Work, and it's by Jeff Gomez, G-O-M-E-S. He's got some interesting insight into career movement, transition, growth, and he suggests that each piece, aka each experience, each time you go to work to do something different, stands on its own for sure, but it can also be viewed as a collective whole, a beautiful collage of a career that you are creating intentionally. Nobody else needs to know that it's not intentional. That's the beauty of all this. If you can present your information in a way, and we'll talk a little bit more about the types of resumes that you should use that would actually help you lead with your strengths. But at the end of the day, really they are and can be viewed as a collection that has led to a career direction. And, being able to be the navigator of all that and choosing, either industry or potential occupations that lead you to passion based on what your skill set is, not what your prior experience in terms of job title is, just gives you so much more options to really consider. I had the pleasure last January, we do an employment conference every second year in Ottawa, and we had a facilitator by the name of Mark Franklin. He's a really interesting guy. He's the president and practice leader of a social enterprise company that actually focuses on employment support. And his company is called Career Cycles. What's really cool, too, is he's a cyclist, so it kind of plays into his whole, finding passion and purpose in his life. So he's based in Toronto, and seriously, his whole passion, form of being is helping others choose a career that really reflects their life purposes and brings them joy. He himself had a huge amount of career transition, went to school to be an engineer, and got to the top of his game, became actually associate professor at U of T, and realized he absolutely hated doing engineering. So what he loved and what he found to be so fulfilling is the mentorship that he was able to provide undergraduate students as they were going through the program. So completely took a change in direction, used a lot of his existing skill sets, but aligned himself with what his passions were. And he presented to us this practice of pivoting, embracing, and intentionally exploring. So while you're going through career exploration, you take the opportunity to, pivot. Just stop where you're finding all your efforts are going to, and change your direction a little bit. embrace the fact that you're actually in career transition, which usually means that you're in a phase of a lot of research, a lot of exploration, a lot of uncertainty, but living in that. And I do understand that's a privilege for some to be, to be able to have that opportunity. But just suggesting that if you just give it a try, and then intentionally exploring something that gives you great passion and purpose. And where does that actually lead you? Taking that opportunity to change those directions and opening up yourself to possibilities that you might not have already considered, but that would be supported by the skill set that you have. So, lots going on in this strategy number 2, but the big piece of this is really embracing the experience that you are in career transition and ditching the idea that you constantly have to choose a specific job title because it's not going to be in keeping with what your career path is. Give me a green check if anyone is having any light bulb moments in any of this, because this is pretty, this is really throwing caution to the wind a little bit here.
Holly, I was literally just typing in the chat. Is anybody else having an aha moment?
Oh, yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, this is new stuff. And Mark, when he was actually presenting all this, of course, he's just full of life and vigor, and you hold on his every word. And like the statistics that he was giving us in terms of people who are experiencing career regret. So 7 out of 10 people who actually seek professional advice through career transition have reported that they have experienced career regret. So, unfortunately, that means somewhere along the line, they've not aligned themselves. They've got a misalignment with what they're doing and what their true passions are. 70%. I mean, to me, that's pretty riveting. Like, that's not a good statistic. We need to do a better job with, educating our students and educating people that are constantly in career transition, which is, perhaps a reality for a lot of you that are here with us today. Okay, the final actual strategy that I'd like to kind of suggest to you is really about making connections. And I really have to say that connections is a thing that putting yourself out there is, there's vulnerability in that, and I'll get to that in a second because, Michelle, I know you're a big Brené Brown fan as well. But connections, real connections, is where it's at in terms of getting to know who's out there, who's hiring, and tapping into that hidden job market. So there are definitely times when opportunity comes a-knocking, and we have to seize the day. And then there are those days when we have to kind of make those opportunities ourselves, right? And, where something doesn't already exist, that really means potentially putting yourself out there and being vulnerable in order to get what you want. Again, I had just mentioned about Brené Brown, has some amazing TED Talks, if you haven't already heard about her, that focuses all on that subject of vulnerability and the freedom that comes with that when you put yourself out there and you're willing to just let go. She's an amazing speaker. So in the last strategy, making meaningful connections, it's really no secret that for some, the thought of making connections, especially ones that are not necessarily through a social media platform, can seem kind of daunting. It's totally not nauseating. But that said, plugging in with people and making real connections can mean all the difference when you're looking for a career, especially one that you're passionate about. Asking questions really is a great place to start. If people know who you are, they will think of you if something develops in their organization. I see this every day. If you have been able to make a professional, solid, and I guess I'm wavering here because professional means something to everybody that's completely different. But if you're able to make a solid impact on somebody and truly connect with them, they will think of you if there is stuff that's going on in their particular organization. And asking questions is a great place to start, right? And, you know, at the end of the day, something as simple as, how did you come to be in this position? If you could do anything, what would it be? And that just starts that whole connection. And from there, the exchange of information begins, and that's where that whole magic happens. A lot of you have been placed in communities that obviously are new to you, and forming those relationships and connections are so integral to many of the parts of just getting involved in your community and feeling like you're part of a bigger purpose. It makes it a little harder to make those connections when you're not from an area, but I instinctively believe, and perhaps this is because I was born into the whole military family system, you know, there's that resiliency that comes with that. And when you open yourself up to those conversations with others, magic does happen. And people love to talk about what they do. They love to talk about how they've arrived at their career, what their journey has been, and to share that particular information with others. So asking those questions, although it might seem really simple, is a really great place to start. And I guess maybe this is time to start talking a little bit about that whole hidden job market, because I think if the statistic on 19 jobs hasn't blown you out of the water, the hidden job market statistic might just do that. Has anyone here, by show of hands, heard of the concept of the hidden job market? Okay, well, I can't speak to other communities that are outside of Canada, but I can tell you this. It's no mistake, it's huge, and it represents over 85% of the jobs that are available in our economy. And they're hidden. So how are you supposed to apply to positions that are hidden? 85% of jobs that are available are not posted online. So that means if you're spending 100% of your time responding to jobs that are listed on, Indeed or Career Beacon, I'm just mentioning a few of the ones that are here in Canada, you're only hitting, at the best, 15%. So you could be working diligently every day on your job search strategy and getting nowhere because at the end of the day, 85% is being either word of mouth, corporate recruitment has gone through the roof, and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is another huge platform where people will go, recruiters will go to source employees. So all of those, and those are just three, the word of mouth, the corporate recruitment, and the LinkedIn, they've become instrumental in moving businesses along and getting people into positions. One of the ways to get in the proper lane with the hidden job market is actually an extension on that concept of intentional exploration that I mentioned in that other slide. You need to really start to get yourself connected. And choosing somebody who has a career that you're interested in and requesting something like I have clients that do informational interviews. So, you're honest with your intentions. You're telling them that you admire what they do and would possibly like to pursue a career in that particular occupation. This is also good. Informational interviews are also good when you're trying to decide on a direction for education as well. You might think you might want to be a nurse, but until you actually speak to a nurse and you have an opportunity to ask them questions about their everyday, it gives you a whole different perspective on that. So getting back to requesting an informational interview, you just want to tell them that you would like to hear about their particular journey and how they got to where they are. And that could mean something, if you pull back a little bit on the strategy on that, it could mean if you are on LinkedIn, for example, that you're doing a search of people who are in the occupation that you would like to be in, where you think you would find passion and purpose, and then reaching out to those people. They like I said, to talk about themselves and how their career direction got them to where they are. But you need to do your homework and you need to set your parameters up by suggesting that you're only going to take a specific amount of time with them. Tops would be a half an hour. You're not going to use that opportunity either to ask them about a job. That's not the point of the informational interview. you know, tell them that you're going to bring the coffee and that you're going to take 20 minutes of their time and you really just want to know how they arrived at being in the job that they are currently in. Having a well thought out approach includes those questions that you would like to ask them and using your time wisely so that you can aim at being impacted and leaving that, you know, professional impression that would be so key. So the way that I would suggest whether a person endeavors to do something like this is that if there is something that you are so passionate about and that you don't personally know somebody who does that particular job, the informational interview could potentially lead you to the opportunity to speak to somebody who actually has a career in that particular area. And no matter how much you read in terms of a job description or an employer review, you're not going to get the bird's eye view like you would if you had somebody that you're speaking to that actually has that particular job. And they might even recommend that you don't do a particular thing that they've done because maybe that was something that if they had the hindsight, they wouldn't have endeavored to do it because it could have been a limiting strategy for them. Lots of things can come out of informational interviews, and you know, they're a great way to just start building up your connections and your networking. The other thing too is, you know, bring your resume with you when you come, because if they do ask for your resume, at least you have something to present to them. If they haven't asked for your resume, you know, the thank you response that you're going to send to them for giving you their time, you might just say, you know, and I have attached my resume for future consideration. Should you think that I would be a good match for your organization, please feel free to connect with me. So lots of good things about those informational interviews, whether it is, you know, somebody endeavoring to take an actual journey that's educational or that you're, you know, thinking about a career change yourself. It can prove to be quite valuable, and there's no expectation. You know, you're not going there asking them for a job. You're going there asking them about what they do and how they actually got themselves there. I think that's pretty powerful stuff. All right, I thought it would be maybe a nice little opportunity, and it's funny, Heather, some of these people you will recognize, and so will you too, Michelle. I thought, you know, I've had 17 years of being able to work with some pretty amazing professionals, and what I have always found so unique about military family support and our whole kind of family engagement model that we use is that our workplace is full of multidisciplinary professionals. Now we're full of multi-generational. We're also full of multidisciplinary. And what happens, you know, what's resulted in that is that we've got this rich, supportive working environment of helping professionals. And I thought it might be kind of a neat idea for you to get to maybe meet some of my colleagues and learn from their experiences. I've got 4 of them here that have been brave enough to stand up and hold my "I love my job because" poster, and I'll read to you what their quotes say. But most importantly, I want you to learn from their experiences and how they were able to find purpose and passion in their work, and how they have been able to align their career choice with opportunities for them to use their existing skills and competencies, their currency, right? And in some cases, they've made huge career changes, and in others, they've been more lateral, but for some, it's been a real, you know, take a risk kind of thing. So the first one on your left-hand side is Elizabeth Thomas, and Elizabeth is our family well-being counselor, and her quote actually says, "I love my job because it's a joy and an honor to be alongside as my clients discover how resilient they really are." Interesting fact about Elizabeth, I think Elizabeth has been there for probably about 14 years, a little over a dozen years. Prior to that, she was actually a nurse. So she's always had that deep concern for people and really a passion for helping others. But, you know, her career as a nurse, she found that she was really not able to tap into the prevention of health, but rather was just, and how do I say this in a respectful way, providing acute care to persons in a hospital setting. She's got a lot more opportunity now to teach prevention and healthy habits and that to her was much more aligning with her own passions and how she wanted to work. And she's amazing. I mean, Liz is due to retire in the next couple of years, but a real pillar to our workforce. And I've been able to see her. She took a mat leave and fulfilled a mat leave for one of our social workers, and then stayed. And it's just been an absolute wonderful experience ever since. To her right is Dina Greer, and this is Dina's an interesting, and they're all interesting. She's an interesting study as well. That's a career term. Her quote says, "I love my job because it allows me to use my personal and professional experiences from both my time in the military and civilian life." So up to a couple of weeks ago, literally, Dina could be found in the preschool room, like working her ECE magic. And I have seen Dina, I've seen her probably apply for I know of at least 3 positions within the MFRC, and each time, just fell a little bit short, took the post-interview opportunity to work on the things that they had said, she potentially could use to strengthen her application, and finally, the position came along that aligned with her existing skill set, her passion, and her ability to move her career forward. So instead of just working with children now, she has a new role where she's able to really, honor her past and prior learning, which is a huge thing for me, but she's now able to get to work with military families in a support role that really has allowed her to sort of redirect her energies and her passion. And seeing the change in her from a couple of weeks ago to now, it's like magic. It's like, wow, this is your fit. This is where you need to, this is where you need to shine. This is where you are shining. You need to stay. So she's had that, 20 plus years as an ECE, working pretty hands-on, one-on-one. I'm sure some of you have, Heather, she would have taught probably your children. And now she's taken that passion and she's, I feel kind of, I feel like we're gifted because now she can work with the adult world as well and the families and really help them through deployment, which is something that she's experienced on a professional level and on a personal level. So it's just a great, it's just magic. The next 2 people that I have here, Darren O'Connell, Darren's a brand new position with the organization, and it's a program supervisor position. So he's actually would be my supervisor. And talk about a unicorn. Like Darren had a family studies background, and with a concentration in programming for geriatric long-term care facilities for seniors. So he was, in his he was in his occupation for about 10 years, did a huge amount of HR, had transitioned a whole management refocus of, I think he had about 15 or 20 staff, got them through a lot of organizational change. At the same time, he's a programmer himself, and his background is in family studies. So I remember when we put out this job ad, it was like, oh my goodness, like this is, I use the term unicorn, but this is really somebody who, I can't imagine how we're going to find this one person that has all of these things in their repertoire, their composites of their skill inventory. And along came Darren, and he had it all, and he ticked off all those boxes. So amazing. He's just been a really good asset. And his quote says, "I love my job because everyone shares the same vision and works collaboratively to best meet our clients' needs." 100% about client engagement, family engagement. That's his whole purpose. And the last person actually came to us from the ECE world as well, Melissa Clark. And Melissa did the special needs and inclusion with the daycare and has now actually transitioned into special needs and inclusion for the center at large. So she was able to hone her skills as an ECE professional and work with that population, and then saw the need that it needed to go further than that for our adults and our families that also come and seek support and services. So she really took on a role that was brand new, and Shelley Hopkins, our executive director, that's been a prior passion of hers, and she sort of has brought Melissa along with that. Shelley has sat on some special needs working groups over the years, had a real vision. They have a shared vision of what that looks like. And Melissa was just, she had left ECE world. She had spent 4 years in the special needs and inclusion for the ECE and had so much to offer, and had taken her skill set and was able to redirect using a different approach, and has now had a lot of success in that position. I think she's been in it for about 2 years. And that's how she has cultivated passion and purpose at work. And Melissa's been with us for, I think she's been at least 10 years. We have a lot of people who have a lot of tenure of time in our MFRC. And I believe it's because we've spent, especially as of late, probably the last 3 years, a lot of time and effort on organizational career development and really providing opportunities for people who are existing staff to sort of stretch their focus, their comfort zones, acquire new skills, get mentored, and perhaps realign some of their professional passions with the outcomes that we need to meet for our organization. And I've been kind of instrumental in that whole organizational career development. And, it leads to retention. When you have people that love what they do, feel passionate and purpose when they walk through the door every morning, they're going to stay and they're going to make big impact. And I have to say, these are only 4 of my colleagues, but it's a true honor to work with each and every one of them, the amount of professionalism that they bring. And I know it's because it's a work of passion for every one of them. So it's a good place to be. Okay, so I thought maybe, again, one of my outcomes, my wishes for us was to sort of share some of our own personal experiences. And we'll get to that actually when we open up for Q&A. But I just thought maybe, if there was anyone we can maybe unmute at this time, Joanna, if there was anyone that wanted to share what they have done in the past that has allowed them to experience passion and purpose at work. Interesting.
So I'm just thinking maybe if anybody wants to share, they could raise a hand. I know we have a few hands raised here.
Pardon me.
So if you call on them, I will write down their answers.
Absolutely. So Beth. No? Or Dr. Hanson, did you have your hand still up from before, or was that to answer the question now? Okay, so Dr. Hanson. Okay, so Beth, if you have your hand up, you can share with us. Okay, maybe not.
A little shy.
Okay, so let's go back up to the top and we'll go to Carolyn.
Carolyn, I think maybe your mic isn't working. You might want to move down to Heather. And Carolyn, could you just type in your answer there for us, and then I'll put it up on the screen because it seems like your microphone's not working.
Yeah, let's go with Heather Cudmore-McCarthy. Just remember, there you go, Heather. Kind of mute yourself.
Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Yeah. Oh, hi. Well, working at 2 MFRCs really allowed, I think my passion came from my life experience that I had as a military spouse, and then was able to translate a lot of my own personal experiences into my jobs, and I loved working with families and sharing with them, my journey as a spouse, and that, you know, that they weren't alone, that what they were feeling and going through, that they weren't, that it wasn't an isolated thing. And I just found that, I guess that was my passion and my purpose at the time, was just as a spouse and taking a lot of my other skills from jobs before that, you know, my skills and jobs, et cetera, from university, taking recreation, a very community-minded degree, and also my job as in tourism, my jobs in tourism, again, those jobs where, you know, you're helping people. I could take those skills and my retail jobs even as well, taking those skills and putting them into my jobs at the resource center. And anyway, I loved doing it. So I guess that's what you call a passion when you really enjoy your job, is it?
Yes, that is. That's where the magic happens when it doesn't feel like you're going to work. Does it feel like you're going to work?
Well, I'm not there anymore. I've retired.
Oh, it definitely feels like you're not going to work.
I will have to say, though, that I'm volunteering right now, and I'm facilitating the Artist's Way, a 10-week course here, and volunteering it. And it's something I've wanted to do for 10 years, Holly, since I've taken the facilitation course and done the Artist's Way myself. And I love it. I'm absolutely following my passion and purpose. Even though I'm not getting paid for it, it's okay.
And you know, you came through the MFRC that way too. Can I share that little bit, Heather? Because I think like that you really got community and community connection and community development. And we have often used you as our example. We all need a Heather Cudmore McCarthy in our community because you're polarizing. You bring people together, and your passion and you just put people at ease. And I don't know if that's that maritime quality or not, but you know, you brought so many people through the door and helped them get connected to the supports and services of the MFRC and really, you know, live to have a better, more fulfilled life because they did get connection.
Yes, and the connection is the key. And you mentioned that, Holly. And it might be hard for some people, but all it is just asking a few questions, you know. Anyway, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle, have we got anybody else?
So we had Carolyn who was able to type her response out here in our chat. So if you'd like me to read that, I can. So she found purpose and passion in her job as a small business manager because she loved working with talented people with a great business idea or a talent that they wanted to turn into a business and seeing it through with them so they could support themselves and eventually provide employment for others as the business grew.
Excellent. Good example. Yeah, absolutely. Finding that connection there, right, and helping others is so, it just resonates through so many of us. It's definitely a common theme, and I think it just, you know, when you're in those situations, I don't know, I just feel so privileged to be able to go to work every day and be in that that role where I'm just walking alongside.
Right.
You know, I'm just coaching the process. It's their dream, it's their plan, and I just can, you know, I'm the cheerleader. It's just kind of getting them through.
Absolutely. I think we have Joanna.
Yeah, I'll share. I got to be an account manager for a radiology company that I was working at. And one of the things I got to do was to travel around to clients and train them. And I love training people where it's measurable, where I can see that once I've trained them, they have better results. And so that made me happy. I loved that job. It was, somebody had written earlier where they were encouraged to take a higher position at some point in time in order to advance. And they were sad that they did it because they loved what they did before. And that happened to me at that job where after doing that training that I loved so much, I was encouraged to do something different and I got paid more, but I found it so dissatisfying compared to what I was doing. And so definitely I think that passion and purpose can be so much more important than that title that we were talking about, or the compensation.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And sometimes it's those people that are well managed, that are really good self-managers, that get tapped on the shoulder to be managers. And, you know, it's a catch-22 because and same thing happened to me for about the last 12 years. I managed a team as well as did a caseload. And, you know, I was an exceptional self-manager, but overwhelmed all the time because I didn't find I was truly in one position or the other. I was so fragmented that I just kept feeling that I was only showing up with half of what I had to really offer. And luckily, you know, my executive director really listened to my call for help, and I said, yeah, I just can't go on doing both. I really feel like I'm not there entirely for my clients, nor do I feel like I'm there for my staff. And April 1 was magic, and you know, she really heard what I had to say, and we realigned everything. And I have to tell you, it was the difference between finding passion again in my work, and perhaps thinking I might have to leave if it didn't realign.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Holly. It means a lot. And Brenda?
Sorry, I was way at the top of the list and I was standing up and I was like, where am I? So I had two different things I wanted to share. One, I'm a trained physiotherapist, so I'd been working a lot because it's easy to get a job as a private clinic physiotherapist. Every time we'd move, it was just what I naturally ended up in, and it's quite a high stress environment often because you have so many people to go through. It's a money-making business type thing. And finally, just because of the situation at hand with hubby being away a lot and young kids at home, I applied to switch to a long-term care facility, so basically a nursing home. And I have to say, it was a life-changing moment just because I got to sit with the clients. I got to, like, often I was the only one that would come visit them during the day, and just it was so rewarding to see how they'd react to me. And, you know, let's face it, if someone's in a long-term care facility, often they're palliative, often, you know, they're there because they can't look after themselves. So it wasn't such a huge pressure to succeed and to not even that. The benefits were more than just physical. They were emotional and mental, and that's kind of when I realized how much I got out of the non-physical treatment that I was doing. And along with that, someone else mentioned a volunteer position. Heather, I think it was you. I know Heather through my volunteer work with the Canadian Military Wives Choirs and co-founding the association, founding the Comox Choir. And that was another thing. I really like seeing a need and filling it, and that was one of those cases where I thought that the local community would benefit from something like that, and I just have a passion for military spouses. So the rewards from I don't know how many years I worked with the association, and then our singing on the stage at the Invictus Games. It was just, I mean, it makes me teary just thinking about those moments. So yeah, it was well worth it, but definitely a passion in, you know, starting things when there's that need and filling it.
Yeah. Oh, Brenda, thank you for sharing that. That just gave me goosebumps.
Yeah. I'm sure there's others on the chat. I know Heather is one of them that has benefited from the hard work. Well, Sue did, as well as all of the others that were on the association to make it happen. So.
And I'm so happy that you were able to still use your existing capacities, but for a different audience, and it just changed completely how how it impacted you.
Yeah.
Right? And, the other thing that I liked what you said is, you use some of your volunteer work to also harvest your passion and your purpose too. And, a lot of us of a particular generation think that, work needs to be everything and give us everything. And I'm hoping that having gone through some of these WebEx that you've been doing throughout your conference, it really is about that, striking that balance, right? Because work should never be 100% about anything. I like that you added the fact that, your volunteer experience with the choir also kind of fed into your, your passion and your purpose. And sometimes that positive impact allows us to show up differently at work. And if we're transitioning out of a negative situation into a more positive situation, that first step is so crucial. And, sometimes having another outlet just makes the everyday much more tolerable. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you to all of our participants for jumping in there and sharing. And so with that, Holly, I think that you have some great resources for us and want to unpack those a little bit too as we move through this Q&A. So that would be awesome.
Right. Okay. So how are we doing for time?
So we are just about 10 minutes after the hour. So we're in about 10 minutes into our half an hour Q&A portion. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to, and I can skim through these really, really quick, Michelle. I just wanted to leave with hoping that people really do seek advice from employment professionals. It will save you a ton of time. So many times I've had people come into my office saying that they've, worked their job search strategy to try and find a job that they liked and, come to me 6 months into it, frustrated, and realizing that it was a couple of tweaks on their approach or a different format for their resume. So really, don't go this alone. There are supports and services out there, and, free and paid both are available, obviously. But if you, don't want to see yourself lose your energy for change and that positive thing, there's no further, there's no quicker road to that than becoming frustrated in that whole job search and career transition world, right? The next slide too is really about getting, things to consider in terms of your own career mobility and in the lifestyle. The resume and the LinkedIn profile is huge. If you're willing to, if it's now that you're trying to transition into your purpose and your career choice, get your resume updated and your LinkedIn profile, especially now that 85% of those jobs are hidden. Self-employment is a wonderful option, especially if it's for career mobility. I know CAF Connections has HERCs, which is helping entrepreneurs reach success. I think they have monthly. You can tune into those through, and Michelle can give you all of those after session notes as well. But self-employment for a lot of people is a really good, it's a good option. It does give you opportunity to really, find those directions of passion and purpose, create your own hours, your own earning income if that's important to you. So, it would be the first step to find out what it's all about would be the HERCs monthly training that they have. I noticed in the chat that somebody was looking at this as an opportunity for their furthering their education to getting the job that they really want. Definitely look into labor market information for jobs. If you're going to make a career transition, see what that particular profession requires in terms of, professional designations or post-secondary education before you make those choices. Labor market information will also tell you about the employability of that particular sector. I know in Canada it's called labor market information. You can go on to careersnovascotia.ca. It will give you a bit of a provincial perspective, but it is also a national perspective, and it will tell you, should I go in this direction? Does the outlook for employment look good? That 2.5 million new jobs that are coming into our economy are new industry as well. So align yourself with maybe some of those particular things that have potential for growth. And home-based offices and telecommunicating, never have I seen more of an uptake in that than I have in the last 2 years. people aligning themselves with national companies that will you know, allow them to do their job outside of the country or outside of the province and still keep their positions while they are posted into a new area. Okay, there, good. That was about 10 minutes in 2 minutes, so that's pretty good.
Good job, Holly. We appreciate that.
So yes, let's get to the fun part, which is the open discussion. So how would you like us to run this, Michelle? Just
yeah. So.